Well, hello and welcome to session 6 of Parenting Through the Phases. This is actually the final session of our parenting labs here at X Church. And if you're right now here at the final session and you just logged on, stop what you're doing right now and go back. We have so many great, incredible speakers who are giving such great parenting wisdom and advice, and you just need to go back and go look at all those things. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I am not a parent. And you probably just logged off. You're probably, why am I watching this kid talk? I am actually on our youth team here, and I oversee grades 6 through 12. So not only am I conversating constantly with your kids, but maybe there are some things that your kids are telling me that they're not telling you. Sorry. But today we're going to be talking about creating a rhythm in your home. And I'm going to tell you the punchline, the main point, before I even tell the joke. So here's our main point for today. It's what you do in everyday moments of life that will make the lasting impression on your kids' hearts. So when you think about rhythms, there's two things you can think about. You can either think about music, or you can think about things you do in everyday life. So who here, or tuning in online, who here is the best dancer? Raise your hand. Okay, Morgan, can you come in the middle and show us your best? I'm kidding. I can't dance to save my life. If you ever see me on TikTok, your kids are constantly on TikTok. I am the worst TikToker to ever exist in just existence. But one thing that I am good at, I can play the drums pretty well. I think I'm pretty good at that. And when I have learned to play drums, I had to learn rhythm. I had to learn how to keep time. I had to learn how to, be coordinated with my movements. And when I play drums, there are certain rhythms and there are certain techniques that I do and I know that I'm good at and I know I'm comfortable with those things. So I'm going to do those at a consistent basis. And the rhythms that you have when you're dancing, the rhythms that you have when you're playing an instrument, your kids need those rhythms. In everyday life and everyday moments, your kids need that routine. Your kids need the constant consistency in their schedule because one, that's where they'll find their safety in. And two, that's something that even they can reflect on, later on in life. Like me, one thing that I always remembered dealing with, hanging out with my mom, the rhythm of on Sundays after church, we would go to Speedway and we would go get slushies. And when we go to get slushies, I would tell her everything that I learned about church, everything I learned about God. If you're creating those rhythms and you're creating those times where you're coming down to their level and you're becoming intentional to not only just giving advice and giving wisdom, but listening to what they have to say, if you have that space and you're willing to be open in that way, your kids will create a rhythm even when they have families, to listen to their kids, to be able to come down to their level. Over the last 6 weeks, you've been discovering new ways to help become more intentional in your parenting. We started by asking you to number your weeks. 936 weeks, just another reminder. Then we talked about how to redefine your role in your kids' life, to embrace your preschooler, to engage your elementary age kid, to affirm your middle schooler, and to mobilize your high schooler. Morgan talked about the 4 conversations to have with your kids to help them form healthy habits, growing in sexual integrity, technological responsibility, and Pastor Jesse, developing an authentic faith. So now you're probably wondering, with all this information, with all the things that I have learned, where in the world am I going to find the time to do this? How am I going to do this? These conversations will never be something that you can just force upon your children. This is something that has to happen over time. And when Pastor Rick was talking about making history, that is something that you need to do. It needs to start from a young age, from when they're in the preschool phase. And then when you're starting there, it shouldn't stop there. It should keep going through every phase in their life. Moses teaches this so well in the Old Testament. In the book of Deuteronomy, we learn about the Ten Commandments. Moses is addressing the nation of Israel, and as they are beginning to shift into new leadership, there were things that Moses wanted the nation of Israel to remember. If you're going to impress the truths in the hearts of your children, you have to be more deliberate about creating a rhythm in your home. And it says this in Scripture. We're going to go ahead and read Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 through 7. It says this: "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up." What this verse is stating simply is that the everyday rhythms of waking up in the morning, of sitting with your kid at the dinner table, of tucking them in at night and going to bed, and every single of the mundane moments and every single time that you have to spend with your child, you can create a rhythm of authentic faith through every single moment in your kid's life. Maybe you think about it right now. What are some of the routines and the rhythms that you've already established even naturally as a parent? And maybe for a second, think about maybe what are some things, like through everything that we've learned through this entire parenting lab, what are maybe some things that you want to establish as a rhythm? And one thing that is so huge, and Pastor Jesse addressed it last session. If you missed that, please go watch it. But one thing that we have noticed, especially me working in youth ministry, I have seen kids develop an authentic faith, finding real community, and have found like a sense of purpose in youth ministry. And the reason that happened is because not only did they, find themselves at an older age in church, but you as parents, you brought them at a young age. You had them in dreamers and explorers and legends and heroes and all through the phases, and to where it's almost weird to us, where it's like, why am I not involved in youth ministry? Because I was already involved, in the past, So the two things that you need to do to prioritize: getting your family to church. COVID ruined every kind of rhythm possible. We were watching church from home. Kids had to learn how to do school online. The rhythm of life was completely shifted, and now we're finding a new normal. You know what I mean? But even through the chaos, making church a rhythm. When you find yourself going through life, you will notice that time will fly by. You start off with a baby and you have 936 weeks, but then maybe you have a high schooler and you have this much time left. One thing that should never change through every single phase is the truths that you're instilling in the kids, in the heart of your kids. When you sing, the VeggieTales songs to your little preschooler and your little toddler, you sing that, one song my mom sang to me is, rise and shine and give God the glory, children of the Lord. My mom sang that to me when I was in middle school. I was like, Mom, shut up. Like, you said this to me when I was a kid. But, now, as an adult and as someone that is not in my home anymore, and I have my own family, I have my own wife and 2 cats, not kids. But, in my life, I wake up because I know today I can give God glory. I know that in my everyday rhythms, I can give God glory because that is something that was instilled to me at a young age. But if you only do that at a young age, and you only do that in the preschool phase, and when you grow up, you're not, saying the cheesy, God sees you, God loves you, you are anointed, you're called for something greater. If you're not instilling that into your child's life, you'll see that the world will begin to form them, and the truths that you even want to impart in your kids will not form them. So here's the main point of today. What happens in a moment will never have the same kind of impact as what happens over time. It's what you do in the everyday moments of life that will make the lasting impression on your kids' hearts. That's why there is collective momentum with what you do every week. With each phase, you redefine your routine times. Because we know in preschool, when you're getting your kid ready, and, like Pastor Jesse was talking about how Milo, did put on his clothes backwards, but he'll figure it out. The routine times are redefined through every single phase. With each phase, you learn to adjust how you interact. With each phase, you fight for your relationship in a new way. Because once your 5-year-old is 6, you'll never get a chance to know them again as a 5-year-old. And once they're 17 and they're turning 18, you'll never get those years back. When we've been talking about time, we've been talking about these marbles. And when these marbles are removed from the jar, you are not able to put them back. So even when Pastor Rick talked about in the beginning, how the countdown begins, well, there's going to be a time where the countdown is going to end. And what are the rhythms that you created in your home that they'll remember for the rest of their life? So just remember, you don't need more time to build influence with your kids. You just need to leverage the time you already have. And maybe you're watching this and you're like, oh, is it too late? Like, am I too late in the game? No, you're not too late in the game. Even though maybe you see that your jar is half empty, with that time that you have, it's time to lean in. It's time to get more intentional. It's time to create a new way of life. It's time to create a new rhythm. Because throughout this entire lab, one thing that we've wanted to do is to affirm your role as a parent. We want to affirm the leadership and the authority that you have over your kid's life. If you want to leave a legacy of faith and character in the life of your kids, do it. When you sit down, when you get up, when you settle in for the night, and when you ride along the way.